He came from a continent that football had long overlooked. He carried the hopes of an entire generation on his shoulders. And he played with a fire, a hunger that could not be manufactured because it came from somewhere real. Somewhere deep. Somewhere that only those who have truly had nothing can fully understand. This is the story of Samuel Eto'o, the African Lion. Welcome back to The Last Boot, the channel where football is more than a game. It is emotion. It is history. It is the human story behind every goal and every heartbreak. I am so glad you are here today. If you are new here, please subscribe and join the Last Boot family. We are growing every single day and I do not want you to miss a single story. Today we are talking about one of the greatest African footballers who ever lived. A player whose career was defined not just by goals and trophies but by the barriers he broke and the doors he opened for an entire continent. Samuel Eto'o. Let us continue. Samuel Eto'o Fils was born on the 10th of March 1981 in Ghana, small town in Cameroon. His childhood was marked by the kind of poverty that most people in the developed world cannot fully imagine. Limited resources. Limited opportunities. But an absolute, burning, unquenchable love for football. He left Cameroon as a teenager alone, determined, carrying nothing but his talent and his will to try his luck in Spain. Real Madrid signed him. But he was never given a real chance at the Bernabeu, sent out on loan repeatedly, used as a bargaining chip, treated as an asset rather than a player. But Eto'o refused to be discarded. At Mallorca on loan he became one of the most dangerous strikers in La Liga. Pace that left defenders standing. A finishing technique that was cold, precise, and completely ruthless. And an intensity about him, a refusal to accept anything less than his best, that made him almost impossible to contain. Barcelona signed him in 2004. And what followed was one of the most successful partnerships between a player and a club in the history of the sport. In 3 seasons at Barcelona under Frank Rijkaard, alongside Ronaldinho, as part of one of the most explosive attacking units the game had seen, Eto'o scored 108 goals. He won 2 La Liga titles. He won the Champions League in 2006, scoring in the final against Arsenal. He was named African Player of the Year 4 consecutive times, a record at the time. But Eto'o's story is not just about what he achieved. It is about what he endured to achieve it. Throughout his career he faced racism. On pitches across Europe, in Spain, in Italy, in other countries he was subjected to monkey chants, racial abuse, and the kind of dehumanizing treatment that has no place in football or anywhere else. And every single time Eto'o responded in the only way that truly mattered. He scored. He won. He stood tall. He absolutely refused to be diminished by the ignorance of others. At Inter Milan under José Mourinho he won the treble in 2010, the Serie A, the Coppa Italia, and the Champions League. He scored in the Champions League final again, becoming one of only a handful of players to score in 2 Champions League finals for different clubs. For Cameroon, the indomitable Lions, he won the Africa Cup of Nations twice. He represented his country 118 times. He was the greatest African footballer of his generation and one of the greatest strikers the world has ever seen. But perhaps the most powerful thing about Samuel Eto'o is not the goals. Not the trophies. Not the records. It is what he represented. A boy from a small town in Cameroon who was told in 100 different ways, by 100 different people that his kind did not belong at the top of European football. And who responded by reaching the very top and staying there for over a decade? Samuel Eto'o, the African lion. He did not just play football. He changed what African football could dare to dream. That is it for today's story on The Last Boot. If this video moved you, please give it a big thumbs up. Share this with every football fan you know. Hit subscribe and join the Last Boot family. Drop your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next video. Until then, keep the passion alive.